Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Happy Labor Day to everyone out there. Today is September 7th, 2020. Got quite a bit of things to talk about today. Space weather related as well. Let's start with our solar wind speeds coming in at 345.9 kilometers per second with a density of 7.4. So after about 5 to 6 days of increased solar wind speeds, we are starting to see them to decline finally. And then another thing to mention as well, we're sitting 17 days in a row without sunspots. That's 173 on the year, 69% of the year without sunspots so far in 2020. So it's been really quiet with the sun. We had a very active end of July through August. And then there towards late August, we started to see things die out. What you're looking at here in the middle of your screen, if you look to the southern region, you'll see a little tiny bright spot, which I thought before it was in the eastern limb that this had potential to actually be a sunspot and break that 12-day streak. Well, here we are 17 days in a row, and we'll go over to SPACEWEATHER.com, or actually the Grand Solar Minimum Space Weather section, and check out a little bit more in-depth stats on that. But before we do that, KP indices sitting at a 0 with a 24-hour max of 1. No large coronal holes on the sun, so we are not expecting any kind of solar wind stream or anything like that here in the next 24 to 48 hours. I will note, though, the last time we went live, we had radiation, cosmic radiation saturation numbers at 8.9%. Well, that's changed to 10.6%, and that is a 7-day change of 0.7%. And that's a pretty dramatic increase in a short period of time. So we saw cosmic radiation rates at 8.9, which were lower than what we're used to, and just in the matter of the past couple of days, we are right back to that 10.6%. And the reason why I wanted to mention this is that during the heart of this minimum, for the past several years, as we saw solar activity decline towards this minimum, this was the rate that we were seeing consistently of at least 10.6 or higher. Now, I have observed it twice to go to 11.1%, which is about 0.6% off from the record rate of cosmic radiation dosage in our atmosphere. And that was set back in 2009. So this minimum is not over by any means. In fact, if you go to SPACEWEATHER.com, and let's go there first before we go to Grand Solar Minimum. But it says right here, space minimum conditions are in effect. The solar disk has been blank without sunspots for 17 straight days. The sun's X-ray output has flatlined and geomagnetic activity is low for now. Solar minimum conditions are in effect. And interesting enough, too, talking about noctilucent clouds, they have vanished, but they will be back. This is normal. We see a cycle, they go away, and they should be back here in the next few months. But also wanted to point that out, a couple things space weather related. Let's go ahead and go over to the grandsolarminimum.com and our space weather section as we take a look at our planets and how they're lined up. And our KP indices along with solar X-ray flux has been flatlining. Nothing on the geomagnetic activity section, and the KP has been flirting with 0 for the past 24 hours. And right now, we are seeing a KP of 0. What do we have coming into the future? Taking a look at our disk, nothing. And I will zoom in on the rectangle. This is the panoramic view of our star. Let me get out the handy dandy arrow to show you this is Earth facing right in this section right here. And then the negative 90 is the eastern limb of the sun. And this is all behind the eastern limb. And when I say eastern limb, when you're looking at this rotation, let's use this one a little better. All right. So here's just an example. This is the 0, Earth facing. And then this is the negative 90 on the very outer edge. This is what we call the eastern limb. And this is the western limb. I know it's backwards, but trust me, that's what it is. So next time you ask yourself, what's he mean by eastern and western limb? This is at the 0%, negative 90, and then plus 90 is the western limb, but this is the eastern limb. This is where we look for new sunspots to appear. And right here in this image on our website, this is the eastern limb section right here and backwards. And as you can see, we are not really looking. I mean, look, this was a very impressive spot when it was back here. We're not seeing anything like that right now. So the only thing that I could see that would break this spotless streak right now that we have, which is 17 days in a row, we could possibly see this thing go into the 25 to 30 day range. Unless there is that rogue sunspot that does appear. And what does create sunspots? Or what allows them, I should say. And if you follow the work of Valentina Zarkova, you will know by learning this from her work as well. But the magnetic field, the strength, is the factor of the amount of sunspots that our sun produces. So if you have a weakening magnetic field on the sun, our sun will produce fewer sunspots. When it strengthens, you'll see more activity, you'll see more sunspots. That is the way that is explained by Valentina Zarkova, which she follows the dynamo theory. So when you correlate grand solar minimum information and you take Valentina Zarkova's work that she does, and everyone says, well, she just specifies in magnetic field. And that's the thing, guys. In her research, everything starts with the sun's magnetic field when it comes to sunspots and solar output. Well, at least sunspots anyway. I don't know about the rest, but at least sunspots, the magnetic field has a big part in how many we see or how many we don't see. So just following her work, by her saying that these magnetic fields are going to phase out in the 2030s, and then you got NOAA telling you from 2034 all the way through 24, you're looking at 3.4 sunspots or lower for the next 8 years. Now, here's where the show that we did last week talking about confirming grand solar minimum. We know that in these deep solar minimums, we see sometimes these cycles miss out on their max. And right now, NOAA is forecasting 0 solar max for solar cycle 26. When you look at their number predictions, the high and the low. So a lot to think about here when you look at Zarkova's work, when you think about the dynamo theory, and then when you have NOAA actually confirming it and they give you a middle, a high, and a low prediction. And even the high side of these predictions is still below 3 for many, many, many years. There's no, you clearly see it in solar cycle 25 where it goes up to around 114 to 121 around 25 and 26. And then you start to see the numbers declining again. Now, NOAA does predict a gradual decline from 25 to 29. Some other scientists don't think it's going to happen that way, that we could see an accelerated decline, kind of like we did in the last solar cycle, where I believe 24, it probably accelerated almost by 8 to 10 months than what people thought they had. So in other words, the conditions that they were expecting in 8 to 10 months were right on top of us. But clearly, NOAA shows that solar cycle 25 is going to have a maximum in the mid-2025s, but it does not show that information for the 2030s or the 2040s. And I guess you just have to know to read between the lines. And again, when you follow the work of people like Zarkova, and her paper clearly lines up with the sunspot prediction from NOAA, high and low, because of how weak the sun's magnetic field is forecasted to be. It's being confirmed by Zarkova that we could see up a 70% reduction in the sun's magnetic field by 2030. And then there was another paper that said we were going to have an increase in cosmic radiation from 35 to 75% increase by 2028 and moving forward. Now you throw in a bunch of cosmic rays and no sunspots. So now you're stuck with lots of cloud nucleation, low-lying clouds, thick clouds. They're bouncing back precious TSI that we need. Cooler temperatures once again for the upcoming decade. I tell you what, I was proud of mainstream this year. I didn't see the hottest summer on record this year as much as I did the past couple of years. So moving on and to grand solar minimum type news. First, we go to watchers. So this earthquake happened yesterday, I believe, September 6th, and it was a 5.1. That's drastically reduced. I saw initial reports around 6.1. However, they are now calling it a 5.1. And 34 have been injured, dozens of buildings damaged or destroyed after the 5.1 earthquake hits Iran. Now, this is near the Iran-Turkey border that we saw earlier? I'm not sure. My geographic is not that good over here. But concerns, there was people thinking that this was possibly something military related, but that'd be a heck of a blast to register a 5.1 on a Richter scale. So for now, let's just stick that it was an earthquake. Several people were injured and dozens of buildings were damaged. Now, this is just the beginning of a long line of earthquake activity that we've seen over the past several days. Also on September 7th, today, another shallow M6.2 earthquake hits Vanuatu. We've had several seismic activities popping off here in this region just over the past several days. It says here, this area was hit by several moderately strong earthquakes over the past 2 days, including a 6.2 on September 6th. So back-to-back days that Vanuatu is bombarded with an earthquake. There's more. Yesterday, 6.3 hits Davao Gulf, Mindanao, Philippines. This one, I think, had possible tsunami information on it as well. Strong earthquake registered by the USGS hit as a 6.3 at 15:23 UTC time on September 6, 2020. The agency is reporting a depth of 74 miles. This was pretty deep. And the other agency actually registered a 6.4 and a little bit deeper, 88 miles. And of course, the EMSC came in at 6.3. I think the consensus will go ahead and agree that this was a 6.3. And this says there was no tsunami threat. So that's good news there. But again, we had a tsunami on a 9.1 earthquake, if I'm not mistaken. And that's why we always just kind of, just in case, when you see that mid-6s and higher, I mean, those are pretty strong earthquakes too. But it's good that we pay attention to that, keep an eye, and the quicker we know, the faster we can prepare as well. Another 6.6 in the Mid-Atlantic, and I know what you're saying, that's typical Mid-Atlantic, but we've had several earthquakes in the Mid-Atlantic area. No damaging tsunami is expected, thankfully, but there has been several earthquakes out here in this region lately, mid-6s and beyond. This was a 6.6. The depth was 6.2, so very shallow, and I believe the other ones as well. And one more, I believe, shallow. That's the other 6.2 that happened yesterday. Why am I mentioning all the earthquakes and a lot of it has to do with KP indices. Usually there's a coronal hole Earth facing that has something to do with it. But over the past several days, we have witnessed KP indices very low since September 6th. And usually when you have low KP indices 0, 1 to 2 and an Earth-facing coronal hole, normally you would see some earthquake activity within a couple days. I did mention a pair of coronal holes actually last week. Could those have been what sparked these parade, 4, 5, 6.2 or higher earthquakes? The timeline might match, and the KP indices were just low enough. So these were moderate earthquakes. They weren't nothing blockbuster here, or, world news worthy or anything like that. But again, with just watching what we're looking at from our star and knowing and being aware of our space weather conditions, it is possible to predict certain events like earthquakes and volcano eruptions. Now, I don't know anything past really much as far as just generalization predictions about earthquake. I couldn't pinpoint the area for you. And I know there's a lot of good channels out there that can, but I'm just trying to show you the basics, the ingredients that usually bubble up these kinds of seismic activities. So if anything, this is just 101 stuff, and there's other channels that can give you the more precision tools. But it's all grand solar minimum connected. Also is the other point of this as well. So, all right, let's move on as we have went through all the earthquake news that I'm willing to talk about for the rest of the day. Early season snow and record cold for the Rockies. This is that grand solar minimum swing temperatures that you're going to see more and more over the next several years, and especially even harsher later in the 2020s, 27, maybe even early as 26. But right now, we're still going to be dealing with it quite a bit for the next couple of years as we're coming out of a minimum, and that takes time as well. An early season winter storm is in the forecast to impact the Rockies beginning tonight, September 7th, 2020. With strong winds, record cold, and heavy snow, there are winter weather advisories and winter storm watches along parts of northern central Rocky High Plains. Meanwhile, a dangerous heat wave across much of the desert in the Southwest and California will linger today, with cooler temperatures expected for Tuesday, September 8th. Critical fire weather conditions are forecast through Tuesday for large portions of the West. And really, that is the story right now as far as the weather goes. We've got these crazy forecasting of snowfall of up to a foot in certain areas. Let's see if we can find the totals real quick on what they could be expecting. I didn't see any numbers here. So you just got to read between the lines, folks. Right here, according to this GFS modeled, it's too difficult. I'll show you later, I guess, in the GFS. Indications, though, we're looking at, 2 to 7 inches of snow. Some places in higher elevations might get closer to a foot. A robust low-pressure system and surface front coming across through the Great Lakes into the northeast will cause scattered widespread showers and thunderstorms from the plains to the Great Lakes over the next 24 hours. Cool Canadian air will filter and settle into the Rockies and plains as surface high pressure slides south in the wake of a cold front. A significant cool down is expected in parts of northern central Rockies and the surrounding areas. Snow will be possible at higher elevations for this area, with an earlier, or actually this is considered an early cold season blast here of cold air that we don't need already. And guys, this was what I was afraid of. I talked about this back in April and May and June, that we had a good plant. Crops were off to a great start. Actually, some of them were record numbers from what they've seen in a long time. And then my concern was two things: damage from summer storms, and then of course early frost and early freeze. And right now we're setting up, here we are, September 7th, and we're going to be looking at the possibility of some snowfall early this year and some early season cold. And I caught a little bit of a conversation here on Facebook, our Facebook group, Matt Bros, and actually I just lost it, of course. But here we go. We were talking about this cold front coming through and the concerns about it. And Matt being in the farming industry himself, and this is why I just appreciate how people share information with each other. We have a really great community here, guys, and hats off to you. But I learned something myself today about this colder temperatures, and what we have to watch for is the temperatures staying below freezing for more than 5 to 6 hours. And Matt informed me, I wasn't aware of this, that as long as we don't see temperatures below freezing or at freezing for more than 5 to 6 hours at a time, then you're not in danger of losing the crop. There's still radiant heat available, and that's the good news. So will this first blast of cold air kill crops? Not entirely, not really, unless we see a period of time of freezing temperatures of 32 degrees or lower for a period of 5 to 6 years. So thank you. Shout out to Matt in Nebraska. Also, Scott Rose in Michigan for getting the topic going anyway on Facebook. So we've got the cold coming to the Rockies and the Plain States, really cold temperatures. And then we have this extraordinary, unusual event is what AccuWeather is calling it. Let's see, extremely unusual wind event reignites relentless fire threat in the western U.S. Now, question for you guys out there in the chat. I heard that this is a record-breaking fire, that over 2 million acres have been burned from this wildfire season so far in California, and this has supposedly set some kind of new record. So if anybody's in the chat that's seen that or heard that, I'm kind of interested into seeing if that's true or not. I'll be checking out the chat as well. Hello, Matt. Good to see you in there, bud. Gregory Burton. Also,
Zelda super chat.
What's that?
Zelda super chat.
Zelda, thank you very much for the super chat from earlier. I apologize. I just now got word. We appreciate your support as always, folks. So let's take a look. Despite the extreme, I hope not. The question in the chat was, did I hear that the fire was set by a gender reveal party? Eesh. Anyway. I couldn't imagine being responsible. That was an accident, obviously, but man, despite the extreme heat and finally relaxing across the West, the threat for more fire danger remains high through midweek. The extreme heat raged across the western United States throughout the weekend. Highs soared as much as 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver. Los Angeles soared to 111 degrees Fahrenheit on Sunday, which smashed their daily record of 102 and fell just 2 degrees shy of all of their all-time high records shy of their all-time high record that was 113. So just 2 degrees off. New all-time record highs were set or tied. And across the Southwest has been hot all summer. They have not seen any relief yet. And I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again. I've called this short, hot summer, and it's not so short out in the Southwest, but it has been hot in most places this summer. But that's what you're going to see. And especially the contrast of this is going to be more noticeable as we march further into grand solar minimum. And then they talk about how parts of the Rockies are getting the cold air. So just a bizarre weather pattern happening right now on the West Coast. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, and let's check out Mike's weather page. My goodness, hold on a second. Let's go back real quick. Look at the watch box out here. I don't think Mari, I don't know if it's showing up on your screen yet. Have you ever seen this kind of a watch box in this part of the country at any one given time?
No.
You've got fire warnings, wind warnings, blizzard warnings, winter storm advisories, winter storm watches. Wow. All right, so let's move away from that. Anyway, so let's talk about these three storms, right? Everybody, I'm going to help you here. Paulette, first of all, is the earliest we've ever had a P storm name. So this is very, very early, Paulette. All right. Renee is now a tropical storm again. These two storms, Renee and Paulette, I have to say right now, indicate to me that these will not be impacts. In fact, they will turn north at some point in the mid-Atlantic. And that is according to the latest information with, and let's see if, yeah, so here we go. This is the wind shear. This is what's driving these storms right now. So these are going to turn north. Now, it could change because Renee is so far away. But we're pretty confident that Pauline is going to be a nothing burger. Hopefully it fizzles out in the middle. Now, as far as what this little orange thing is here, we've got a 40% chance of cyclone formation in the next 5 days. This was as of 8 o'clock tonight, so this is pretty fresh. An area of low pressure is located more than 200 miles southwest of Bermuda, is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Some gradual development of this system is possible during the next few days, while the low moves slowly westward to west-northwestward. How about that? Formation chances in the next 48 hours are low at 20%. In the next 5 days, only 40%. But heads up, North Carolina, South Carolina, possibly Va Beach. Nothing too serious yet. We can look at ocean temperatures as well if you'd like. And they're pretty warm, but nothing crazy. Nothing too crazy, but, you know, warm enough to support some hurricane action. But at this point, a lot of this stuff is being steered to the north and curving up into the central part of the Atlantic, where there are high pressure systems that are driving this as well. So what am I saying? Good news, right? Absolutely. Even though we have had an active 2020 hurricane season where we already have the R-named storm, and right now is, by the way, peak season for hurricanes. Right now, we are dead thick of the peak. But just know it's looking good so far that we are lucking out with these systems that appear to be just taking a different direction and not affecting us at all. Maybe the orange cone out here in the closer part of the Bermuda area, maybe this one might have a chance to make some kind of an impact. But right now, it's too far out to tell. This, Renee, definitely too far out. And then there's another wave to watch. So this is where we start to things rev up, but we have to continue to watch wind shear, the dust plumes that go from the African deserts all the way across the Atlantic into the Caribbeans and to the Gulf. And that drives the air up and also will affect how strong these storms will develop. I just showed you the water temps in the Gulf and in the Atlantic, and it's almost bath water in certain areas. So, all right, let's go ahead and check out our GFS outlook. And yes, that is snow. We are looking at snow chances in the Northwest. So, lots of rain coming in from the Atlantic. That moisture still being drawn in. That has not changed. Look at that. Outstanding. Sorry, guys. Early September. I remember last September we got snow in like the 24th and the 25th and the 29th where we got measurable snow and it stuck around. In Montana, I think we got something crazy like 42 inches on the 29th. But it's only September 7th, and that looks like a typical winter storm. And look how far south this goes. My goodness. And it sticks around for a little while. This is Thursday, so that snow starts on Tuesday and ends sometime around Thursday. Meanwhile, that moisture from the Atlantic and the Gulf continues to pump the East Coast. Tons of moisture. High pressure trying to settle over the Great Lakes, keeping things dry for the most part of this week. And then we get to Sunday, and boy, has the forecast changed. Last time we aired and showed you the GFS outlook, we were looking at clear skies and dry air and everything. Now, it's looking like rain for Cleveland, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, northern Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, parts of Texas, throughout the southeast as well, up the East Coast. And we have an image of what looks like Paulette. After I sat here and said, don't worry, guys, it's going to go north. Well, it could still miss us, according to this model, if this high pressure system is as strong as it is indicating. And I'm talking about right here. Watch this area of high pressure drop down from Canada and basically push this system out. I'll back this up a little bit. But at this point right here, we're looking at Paulette possibly being a landfall here. Pressure is dropping, intensifying by still several miles offshore, but 957, 955, that's a pretty serious hurricane. But you can see that high pressure, this major cold front, coming down and just steering this storm and pushing it. It almost looks like it literally is pushing it out to sea for us. So we might have dodged a bullet thanks to high pressure coming from the north. And then by September 20th, more high pressure trying to take an effect. More snow in Canada, by the way. And I thought that might have been a chance of light snow in upstate New York. Thank God it's not. I'm not ready for snow yet. But we got snow in BC and Alberta showing up on the radar by the late part of September. High pressure system just completely continuing to dominate as we go through the month of September. Now, I saw a forecast from NOAA that predicts above average temperatures for the month of September, above, like highly above, for the Northeast. The Midwest and the Plain States are looking chilly as well, but let's take a look at our temperature forecast and see if that's what we're going to have. Now, look at this. Is definitely a sharp cold front that is moving through. And actually, that would explain all the wind that we got today, because that cold front actually was already here. Look at this. Talk about heat buildup. That last gasp for summer on Tuesday, September 8th, as that cold front begins to push further south. Another day in the 80s on the East Coast, the Midwest. Enjoy it, folks, because this cold air front is still pushing. By the time we get to Thursday, we start to see some moderate temperatures across the Midwest and the Plain States, the northern Plain States as well, regulating in the 50s and 60s. And then as we go through to the weekend on Friday, more cooler temperatures overnight, daytime highs, much more comfortable for much of the country by Friday, September 11th. And this is welcomed for a lot of folks who have seen some pretty intense heat, and especially out there in the West Coast. It's trying to die down, but the Deep South also trying to keep it a little bit, warm, cooler than usual. So let's move forward. Next weekend, these are overnight low temperatures, more cold coming in. Again, the heat tries to build back up in the Ohio Valley, but another cold front coming in on September 13th. And that is bringing in the moisture as well, so that heat will be trapped. And again, we are seeing this oblong, cool air pocket. And the only time I've seen that on a frequent basis is when we have Greenland blocks. Move that air out of the way. So I'm going to be curious. I'm going to check the high pressure where we're looking at by the 14th of September. And then we have more cooler air moving in from Canada. Temperatures really leveling off across much of the United States. Beautiful, perfect temperatures for mid-September for almost everyone, except for the Southwest and Florida. But other than that, everywhere else looking great. Overnight lows touching the 30s in the far northern part of the Northeast. Daytime highs still regulating very nicely in the 60s and 70s, still more of the same. And then we get another cold front that moves through on the 19th of September. And now we start to see much cooler conditions on the 20th, as the Northeast seeing temperatures for highs in the 50s, the Midwest, like the Ohio Valley, seeing 60s and 70s, and much cooler air overnight moving in the Northeast. And right after that cold front moves through, we have another one that will spill just as much cold air into the Rockies that we saw from this previous system. But look how sharp this system is. Right down the line, you're talking 80s and then in the low 60s within miles apart. That's a sharp and fast drop. So this month is going to be wild as far as weather goes when it comes to rain. We're still going to have to keep an eye on the Gulf and the Atlantic for any kind of pop-up developments. But the encouraging news, as far as I'm seeing, and I don't see any scenario on here that brings a low pressure system in from the Gulf as a potential storm that might have something other than Paulette. And Paulette is going to get steered out of here by that high pressure system. The high pressure is trying to dominate all over here in the month of September. Look at all that snow. Minnesota, we got to watch out for you, bud. We might have to watch out for you. This looks like it's going to start as rain, and just depends on how fast that cold air arrives. Does that stay rain the whole time? And this is a long way out, man. The September 23rd is not reliable. This is just a speculation and an idea of what could come in the next several days. But right now, fall weather is definitely playing its part here in the United States. So are we seeing that overseas? Let's check it out. Let's check out the UK, Germany, France, across Europe, Italy, Denmark, Finland, Norway. Let's try that. Sweden. Fenway is a baseball field in Boston. Right now, not seeing a lot of major storms that we were checking. Here is that low pressure that was thought to be here by the 12th of September, 13th. Now it looks more like a solid date of around the 16th of September. It's Wednesday. It's going to be just a miserable, dreary, windy day. Lots of rain, lots of wind, possibly some minor damage to trees, power lines, some property damage possible for the UK. And then we get another low pressure system that swings through several days after that, about 4 days, bringing 1, 2, 3 waves of 4 waves of shower activity. So pretty massive size low pressure system just comes waltzing in here at the last minute and dominates the weather out here. Let's take a look one more time. This is the 14th. There's our first low pressure system around the 16th through the 17th. Moderate rain, moderate wind. There's a system number 2. System number 3 right here that whips around several times. So there's going to be several bands of rain from this one low pressure system over a 3-day span here in the UK. So we'll keep our eyes on that as well. Let's take a look at temperatures. And I tell you, the UK is almost mocking how it is in the northeast of the United States. Meanwhile, a lot of the same temperatures that we're seeing in the States are appearing here across Europe as well. France, Spain, Portugal, you're talking about 80s and 90s in the Fahrenheit ranges. I know you guys are Celsius, but to the American listeners here that don't know what the conversion is of Celsius, I just guessed. Anyway, you get the picture. We're still hot in some spots here across Europe, especially in Italy as well. Germany, not so much. France, still pretty warm, but the UK, feeling pretty good. But a lot of that has to do with, too, and especially when we start seeing these low pressure systems move in right around now, temperatures in the daytime getting a little cooler, more cloud coverage, more rainfall, and that shows up in the temperatures. So when we get to around the 14th or the 15th of September, mid-September, the UK is going to feel much more like fall than it has here recently. And again, nothing too drastic, which is good news, but still, temperatures will continue to decline by mid-month here, according to the GFS models. And that's going to be pretty much what we got for tonight. Mari, did you want to jump on here and say hello to everyone?
Yes.
I know we had a lot. There's Thor. Good to see you, bud. Also, I saw Matt, too.
Everyone says it feels like Twilight Zone for all kinds of different
It's
reasons.
just a roller coaster.
Pick a reason, Jake.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you, Zelda, for the super chat. We've got Thor in the house, Matt Bros.
Good evening, Matt.
Very enthusiastic gardener.
Veg.
Laura, Dana, Seth. Who else do we have? I mean, there's loads of people. And Dorothy. Did I say Knife Collector? Jerome?
No, I saw him earlier.
People in the chat. So
Jerome's becoming a regular here. I've seen him a lot.
He's in Rochester, Jake.
Oh, nice.
A couple people.
A
from
fella
Ohio.
upstate.
We had some Ohio people in the chat, and I was telling them in the chat how your son called and was telling us about a possible tornado near
It didn't look good.
Or somewhere.
Greenville. Very rural area. It's about 40 minutes away from Indiana, so it's very close to the border. But yeah, those are some pretty scary wall clouds.
That's all I got, Jake.
Oh.
Just chit chat.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm thinking about, I said I was going to put It's the Sun masks up, and I haven't, so I'm going to be doing that this week. Keep an eye out for them.
New designs. Guys, if you like what you see on this channel, please support us at our Teespring store or become a YouTube member by going on your PC to the YouTube page of Grand Solar Minimum, or just go to Patreon as well. Any kind of support is appreciated from you guys. We are subscriber ran and will always be that way. So we want to be able to deliver you the best content possible, and we appreciate your support as always. Guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. We're going to try to do a show tomorrow night as well. Busy week ahead for Mari and I, but definitely either Tuesday or Wednesday, be on the lookout. We're trying to get those notifications fixed as well. Make sure when you check your notifications on our channel, click on the bell and make sure it's set to all to catch all of our notifications for our live shows. That's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk soon. Take care, guys.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.